is full with rotten paper. No one ever saw it clearer. Judging the content, never miss a moment. All impressive information we discuss with every nation.
One of the things people have to realise is that the archive can be used for many different purposes. I'd like to illustrate two particular examples: the use by Achim Engels and the use by myself. Now, Achim is a plane builder. He builds full-size, full flight-worthy aircraft. In my case, I use CAD programs to design scale models of all sorts of different items. World War I, World War II, even modern stuff. So let's explain those two different varieties. So, taking Achim's approach, one of the things we discovered, or rather I discovered, in the Fokker archives in the Netherlands was this particular drawing, which is an original Fokker drawing of the V40. Now, while you might say, no, that doesn't really help very much, but actually it does. It's 1/10 scale, accurate drawing with information such as tube diameters for all the various parts. It has a weights table to give you an idea of just how much this aircraft should weigh. So there's enough information in here to actually build an aircraft, particularly for someone like Achim's experience, given that he's built 21 different Fokker aircraft in his time. So I think he's got enough experience. But before we found this photograph, all we had was a small number of photographs. While there are original Fokker photographs, and they're very clear and very precise, trying to design an aircraft or design actually the drawings you need to make an airplane would be virtually impossible. But photographs just gives us some details. So they give us details about the fuel tank, kind of control grip, where the auxiliary controls might be located for the fuel, ignition, the seat details, but also, interesting enough, camouflage fabric on the rudder. So very useful information. If we look at the next image, again another Fokker image, we can see the entire fuselage is covered in camouflage fabric. But also we can see there are lots of stains down that side of the aircraft, where it has obviously flown quite a bit. Again, another image. Nice side view, but not 100% side view. Again, very difficult to use to make a drawing of any sort. And this tall guy standing in front of this aircraft, you think, oh, he's either very tall or the aircraft's very small. Actually, it's quite small. It's a very small airplane. So how do you get from one drawing, a number of photographs, to a finished airplane? Well, you have to go through quite a few steps before you get there. And one of those steps is to create proper engineering drawings for the aircraft. Achim does this the old-fashioned way on a drafting table, and the results are outstanding. The detail is more than adequate to go ahead and use to build an aeroplane. And there's a whole series of these photo plans. Wings, fuselage, etc. So, having done all that, you can start building. And the results, if you're really good, might look a little bit like this. The engine on the front is actually a modern Werner engine, roughly 60 horsepower. So given that the aircraft was originally powered by a 35 horsepower Anzani, it should be fine. And as you can see, the aircraft follows very typical Fokker construction methods. Fuselage is steel tube, wire braced. The wing is wood, predominantly wood, and actually is a pretty representation of the D7 lower wing, of course with a cutout for the pilot. But it gives you an idea of what can be accomplished given the right level of information. So there's Achim's use of the archive, how he makes use of what little he has, plus his knowledge and experience on Fokker aircraft, to actually produce a fully flight-worthy aircraft from a number of photographs and one drawing. Pretty astonishing, really. A number of years ago, I was commissioned to design a 1/24 scale model of the Bloodhound missile, as shown here. Now, as you can see, it's a fairly complicated thing. I have, in the archive, I had a number of photographs of this particular item, but equally managed through other sources to find a lot of technical details which enabled me to actually model all of these things that you see here, the lumps, bumps, screws, brackets, clamps, pipes, whatever, in 24 scale. Now, the end result was quite astonishing, but it took a long time. I also had some drawings, basic drawings, just to give us an idea of what the basic shapes and configurations were. Now, this drawing in particular is not very useful for us because it doesn't give us enough detail. But we had plenty of other things, so we picked up things like these cutaway drawings, which also showed some of the detail around the actual mechanism that holds the missile in place. So that in itself was useful. And here is the model completed, painted in 1/24 scale. Now, I beg anyone to actually come up with things that don't look right, because it certainly does fill the picture. So my use of the archive in this particular case is to collect information, to process it, and then to use it to design in the CAD package this particular model. And as I said before, it took quite a long time to actually do. On to other examples. Here we have an original drawing of a C-type hangar, roughly pre-World War II period, but basically it was used almost through the war as well. And I was asked to create a 3D model of this particular hangar, full size, to be used in a flight simulator. So a slightly different method of using the tools. I didn't use a CAD package, I used a 3D package. But the end results, I think, speak for themselves. The detail is there, all the structures are in place, all the bracing, all the steel structure is in place. There's nothing really that's missing from this model that would make anyone disappointed about what was done. Even the doors have got rivets and panels. So again, use of the archive to produce something from just one drawing, and obviously a number of photos were also used as reference points, mainly to get some of the colouring in the model itself. So you can see here we've got brickwork on the outside, lots of different textures, lots of different designs, but all so that it could fit into a flight simulator. Just another example of using the archive to produce something that hadn't been produced before. Another example, here we have a Kittenkrad from World War II, very famous German vehicle that causes quite a stir when you see one. And again, I was asked to create a 1/24 scale model for this particular item. These are some in-progress photographs, basically of the model as I was building it, giving you an internal idea of what the engine was like and various accessories, sort of the water tank, the air filter, even the distribution box is there, the oil filter, all done from a detailed set of photographs and some scale drawings. So the archive provided me this information that allowed me to design this in a CAD package. Now, one of the things I was never concerned about when I'm designing a model in 24 scale is what wall thickness am I going to apply. Now, the panel here on the top, which is the access to the filter, is probably only about, I don't know, 20 SWG, maybe 24. But in the model sense, it's 0.7 of a mil thick, so that it can be printed properly. So consideration has to be given to the materials that they're printed in, but also the printer's capability to actually produce the detail given what you're actually designing. Another project I was given was to produce a 24 scale model of this trailer. It's the M52 Ben-Hur trailer, quite extensively used during World War II and even post-war. So taking the same approach, using historical information, reference materials, technical documents, I can produce this particular model. Now the wheels themselves are just mock, because the wheels have already been designed for another model, so it's just a plug and play approach. So you can see then that the model has to be designed within the limitations of the printer, but equally it has to look realistic, it has to fit. Another interesting project was the design of the Opel 3-ton trucks track system. Quite unique, very interesting design, and designed to fit on a 1/24 scale Opel truck. So as you can see, this is what it would look like if it was a complete model. And here we have the chassis and the wheels, the suspension system, and the tracks, all designed in CAD, all to 24 scale, ready to be printed and used. So my use of the archive is somewhat different to most people, because I look at it from the point of view of using the information to enable me to design exact models of the actual live objects. So my approach is different to Ahim's. Ahim is more about a very, very specific detail and the very specific information about things like thickness of wing ribs, what size timber does he use, what sort of fabric does he use, what kind of stitching does he use. For me it's different. I use it from the point of view of designing something to replicate an actual item in a reduced scale. That has some limitations, but generally speaking they work very well in 24 scale. So given the two examples I've just shown you, it should give you some idea as to the flexibility that the archive can present given different needs. Ahim's need is for extreme detail, my need is for extreme realism, given the limitations of what the models can produce. So given that the archive contains lots of information about aircraft from 1900 to 1920, but also aircraft from 1921 to 1946, a load of general items, historic documents, railways, ships, uniforms, vehicles and weapons. There's pretty much a whole range of information here that people could make use of to do their own projects. So I hope that this little video has explained to you the possibilities that the archive can use in practice. It's now up to you to work out what you want to do.
See you next time, where the circuit shines. Scroll the timeline, leaving the past behind. No pen, no pad, just a screen to confide. See you next time on the